I remember as probably about 11 years old, which my son is right now, my eldest. I remember going to my friend's house and just being blown away by the fact that they had 2 bathrooms. And it was my goal. To me, that was rich. They also had a 2-story house. And my goal in that moment was, I'm going to get enough money that I'm going to get 2 bathrooms. Because I was with my mom, my sister, my stepdad, and my 2 stepbrothers, and we had 1 bathroom. And sometimes it wasn't so easy, especially during flu season. And so that was sort of like that first watermark for me. I'll know I made it when I have more than 1 bathroom.
Yeah, so do you consider yourself poor as a child?
Yes, I would. A big difference between poor and broke. And poor is, the way we describe it, it's a mindset. And broke just means you have no money. Now, I've been broke. A lot of people have been broke. The problem with a poor mindset is it'll keep you broke forever. And so I think it really does help to distinguish between the two, because I certainly know broke people who, I'm thinking of young people right now, who I talk to for 5 minutes and I'm like, oh, this kid's gonna be a multimillionaire. I can just tell by their mindset, by how they're approaching life, the fact that they're younger, wishing I had that mindset when I was younger. But a poor mindset is something that is infectious. It's something that I think we should strive to eradicate. To me, that's the pinnacle of wealth, is that you own your most valuable resource, which is not a sports car, it's not a mansion, it's not 2 bathrooms, although that's much better than 1. But to me, it's owning your time. It's owning your time with the caveat that you have resources so that you can do what you want to do and what you'd most like to do with your time. And for many of us, it comes down to spending time with the people we love, engaged in activities that give us joy, that inspire us, that put us in a flow state, and being able to decide to pursue career opportunities, not out of a sense of scarcity.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm flying solo today. My normal co-host, Jackie Cummins-Koski, is in Bali, living the FI Freedom Retreat. But today I am so lucky because I get to talk with Dr. Brad Klontz. Let me introduce him to you. So we've got a guest who reminds us that money struggles usually aren't about math. They're about what's going on in your heads and in our habits. Dr. Brad Klontz, PsyD, CFP, is a financial psychologist, a professor, a best-selling author, and oh yeah, an internet influencer with millions of followers who tune in for his mix of straight talk and practical money wisdom. His very first book, The Financial Wisdom of Ebenezer Scrooge, showed how even the world's grumpiest penny pincher could completely change his money story. And now with his newest book, he co-authored with Adrienne Brombilia, Start Thinking Rich, 21 Harsh Truths that take you from broke to financial freedom. Brad lays out a no-nonsense roadmap for breaking bad money patterns and building real financial freedom. If you've ever seen Jason Segel's character in Shrinking, you know the therapist who makes you laugh while dropping uncomfortable truths you really need to hear. That's pretty much Brad's style when it comes to money. He mixes humor with hard truths in a way that sticks. Today we're going to dig into why smart people still make dumb money mistakes, how to uncover the money scripts holding us back, and what it takes to build a healthier financial future while catching up to FI. Please welcome Dr. Brad Klontz. Welcome to Catching Up to FI.
I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's really great of you to spend time with us today because we late starters, we have money mindset issues. We have been stuck and we need to wake up, smell the roses, and get on a path to financial freedom. But I'm going to ask you the hardest question of this entire show right up front. Okay, you ready?
I thought I was ready. Now I'm nervous.
How many toilets do you have in your house today?
Oh, I love that I have to pause and count up my bags of wealth. I have 4. I have 4 toilets in my house.
Well, there's a reason I asked this, and I think you know the reason. And I'd like to dive into your money story because it tells us about the evolution of your life, tells us why you ended up where you are today with trying to help people with their own money scripts. What was your first memory of money, and where did your journey this hero's journey you were on start?
I don't have like a first memory that pops up, but I have a bunch of memories. And it's essentially memories that money is in scarce supply. There's not enough money, and it's something to fight over. So my parents divorced when I was 2, and I don't remember a life without them fighting about money. And I don't remember a life without realizing that we didn't have much money. And your reference to the bathroom, as a child, life is just life. I think it's harder for kids now because they see other lives on social media. But back in my day, you didn't know what you didn't have unless you looked at the Sears catalog, just to date myself a little bit. That turned you on to, oh, other people have these things. But I remember as probably about 11 years old, which my son is right now, my eldest, I remember going to my friend's house and just being blown away by the fact that they had 2 bathrooms. And it was my goal. To me, that was rich. They also had a 2-story house. And my goal in that moment was, I'm going to get enough money that I'm going to get 2 bathrooms. Because I was with my mom, my sister, my stepdad, and my 2 stepbrothers, and we had 1 bathroom. And sometimes it wasn't so easy, especially during flu season. And so that was sort of like that first watermark for me. I'll know I made it when I have more than 1 bathroom.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself poor as a child?
Yes, I would. Yep. And poor is relative.
So you talk a lot about poor and broke. Tell us the difference in what that meant to you as a child being poor.
Yeah, so the way that we've described it in Start Thinking Rich is a big difference between poor and broke. And poor is the way we describe it, it's a mindset. And broke just means you have no money. Now, I've been broke. A lot of people have been broke. The problem with a poor mindset is it'll keep you broke forever. And so I think it really does help to distinguish between the two, because I certainly know broke people who, I'm thinking of young people right now, who I talk to for 5 minutes and I'm like, oh, this kid's going to be a multimillionaire. I can just tell by their mindset, by how they're approaching life, the fact that they're younger, wishing I had that mindset when I was younger. But a poor mindset is something that is infectious. It's something that I think we should strive to eradicate. Like, I still have aspects of a poor mindset I'm trying to eradicate from my subconscious as it pops up. And a big part of my research efforts over the years have been to really try to identify what is a rich mindset. Because as a kid, I saw my family struggling. I saw us not have much money. At the same time, my family was extremely hardworking, and they were diligent, and they were good people. And I was sort of struck with the unfairness. Like, why do people in my family who are great people, working hard, why do they not have money? Why are we in trailer parks? Where other people who don't seem to be working any harder have 2-story homes with 2 bathrooms. Like, what's the difference there? Because I felt on a deep level that it wasn't a character issue. It must be a way that they're thinking or approaching life. And so I talked about my friend's house when I was 11. We were friends in middle school. And I remember being at his house and interviewing his dad like I was a psychologist. A vivid memory of sitting down at dinner and me saying, so what do you do for a living? Like, how did you get that job? I was even at a young age sort of searching for, is there another way to look at this? Is there a more strategic, better way to look at money?
So although you were sort of born into a poor mindset or a broke station, you were asking folks, well, what is the way out? This is not a permanent state, right?
Yes. And a big part of that rich mindset I think I had as a young child, I mean, thank God, I'm not sure where I got this, but I had this belief that, and this is a very important belief, that if they can do it, I can do it. And so if it wasn't for that belief, I'm not sure I would have been looking for that information. I really encourage people, find a mentor, find somebody you can relate to that gets you to the place where you can say, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Because when you have that, it's like a light switch and it'll change everything in your life, and you will see everything differently than if you're living under the delusion, frankly, that, well, there's no way I can do it.
Yeah, the system's rigged against me, right? I'm who I am. I'm broke. I'm poor. I'm never going to get out of this station. And the rich and wealthy are over there. And there's really no clear path for me to get there. But you also talk about rich and wealthy. And there's an important distinction here. And we often confabulate these terms. And what distinction do you make between those two terms?
Yeah, it's a fun distinction. I think it's a fun way to look at it because it really sort of captures a lot of what the research says about true wealth. And so when I think of wealth, I'm thinking of a high net worth. And when I think of rich, and I use them interchangeably all the time, I think we all do. But when I think of rich, I'm thinking more of people having an outward display of wealth. And so from the outside, it looks like, are they rich? Are they not rich? Well, what's so fascinating is people in the financial independence, the FIRE movement, they get this. But essentially, all the studies I've done have found that people who tend to have the higher net worth actually kind of downplay what they have. And it just makes logical sense. So if you are flexing the latest watch, your car, the next shiny thing you want to buy, there's a direct correlation to you buying expensive stuff and having lower net worth. And that's what happens. So when you look at it statistically, people who are out there flexing the stuff that they have, think about it. They're addicted to stuff, buying, consuming. They end up having lower net worth. And that's what we have found in our studies.
Yeah, it's interesting because can you be poor and wealthy at the same time? We had a show with Monica Scudiere, who's a single mom, struggling, unemployed, and her child from the back seat didn't ask about the birds and the bees. He had seen what went on at his friends' houses from school, much like you did with the bathrooms, and from the back seat asked his mom, "Mama, are we poor?" And she had a wonderful answer to that question where he said, no. And it sort of went along the lines of Maslow's pyramid, where she said, no, we have a house over our heads. We have clothes on our backs. We have food on the table. We have love at home. We are wealthy. We are not poor. So I think we get this confused. We want to attach numbers to these things, but these, as you've said, are sort of emotional states of mind, right?
They really are. And it really comes down to how you define it. And for me, becoming wealthy or even rich in my mind too, it's like it's owning my time. And so I established that as sort of like, to me, that's the pinnacle of wealth, is that you own your most valuable resource, which is not a sports car, it's not a mansion, it's not 2 bathrooms, although that's much better than one. But to me, it's owning your time. It's owning your time with the caveat that you have resources so that you can do what you want to do and what you'd most like to do with your time. And for many of us, it comes down to spending time with the people we love, engaged in activities that give us joy, that inspire us, that put us in a flow state, and being able to decide to pursue career opportunities, not out of a sense of scarcity and I have to do this to pay the bills, but out of a sense of purpose and passion. And so for me, that's always been the goal. And if you have that as your goal, you probably are more likely to get there because you won't fall prey to these outward displays of pseudo wealth.
Yeah, I mean, humility and understatedness are really the signs of the millionaire next door. And I think that's what we're talking about. That old book still holds true, and I think dovetails well with your new books and your thought process. You said you started out in a trailer park. You now live in Boulder, Colorado. There was a lot of twists and turns and journey in between. Take us through the evolution of your career, and how did you end up focused on the psychology of money? Because that's not where this journey started, right?
Yeah, certainly not. I ended up going to college, and I'm not sure I would have gone to college, but I was recruited because I happened to be a pretty good tennis player. And so I went to college on a tennis scholarship. I played a couple other sports in college too. And partway through the college experience, I started to notice something on a real, like, visceral level. And that is that during my summer jobs, it was back-breaking labor. I was working on the road commission. I was doing construction. And it was really hard, okay? And I noticed at college that I got to sleep in. There was a lot of air conditioning. And I had to read some books and stuff. And for me, I was like, wow, this is easier than that. And so I was inspired to sort of shift my mindset around college other than just sports. And my grades weren't very good at the start. And I realized this is sort of a path to becoming wealthier. Then I approached school with that in mind, like as a business decision. And so I was interested in psychology. I remember looking through, I forgot what it was called. Department of Labor puts out the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So I want to do psychology. What pays the most? Like if I'm going to go do this, what's going to pay the most? And that's where I landed on clinical psychology. And so I pursued it with that business in mind. And I ended up getting into grad school. Along the path, I had to borrow about $100,000 in student loans. And this was terrifying for me. So I grew up in a family, we didn't have much money. My parents got divorced when I was 2, so whatever we had, which wasn't much, cut it in half in that moment. The one thing I was taught was like, never, ever use debt. Like, debt is terrible, which was actually a great mindset. If I wasn't taught that, who knows what sort of trouble I would have gotten myself into. But I did have this $100,000 in student loan debt. And at this point, I'm in Hawaii doing my postdoc residency on the island of Kauai, where I lived for 20 years, met my wife there. And I saw a friend of mine make $100,000 in 1 year by trading stocks. And I remember sitting at his computer and he's introducing me to this fascinating world. In my mind, I'm like, wow, this is what the wealthy do. I saw him make $100,000 in 1 year. Are you kidding me? And this is when I knew that if he could do it, I could do it. I watched him buy a stock and I said, what is that stock? Like, what does that company do? And he's like, I have no idea. Click. And in that moment, I was like, wow, I can do this. So the key really is, and by the way, this was sort of the first time that the average Joe could really become an investor. So this is when these online discount brokerage firms became popular. And so you could just open up an account. Like, you don't have to have $1 million to get a stockbroker or whatever the bar was that I just felt like was impossible for me. It's like, oh, you can just do this. So I sold everything I had of value, which wasn't much. It was a truck I had. And I drove a $500 car. I mean, my wife met me at this time. It's amazing that she saw something in me, maybe potential. Maybe she felt sorry for me. I'm not exactly sure. And I started to day trade with it. I did great for a few months. And then the tech bubble burst. And as I watched my money melt away, I asked myself this question: why would a reasonably intelligent person do something so stupid with his money? I beat myself up. I was ashamed. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I do this? And as a student of clinical psychology, part of that journey is, if you want to help anyone, you better figure out your own stuff. And that's actually probably one of the reasons I was drawn to clinical psychology, is I'm trying to figure out my really dysfunctional family. I had a brother who took his own life. It's like, what's going on with my family that led to all this trauma and all this drama? And I approached money with the same sort of mindset. It's like, okay, this is clearly my mother's fault or my family's fault, but certainly my fault. I did this. And so I went and did a lit review, which is what we're trained to do. You were trained to do this as a physician. You figure out what the research tells you. Like, okay, so people, there's a problem here. So how do you diagnose this problem? How do you treat this problem? What do you do? And that's when I came up empty. And I was shocked. I was like, so clinical psychology has ignored money? And the irony here is that money is the biggest source of stress in people's lives. And the American Psychological Association, they do a Stress in America survey every year. It's at least 3 out of 4 Americans every single year. When times are great, when times are bad, it's like stress around money. Yet the field of psychology had utterly ignored it. And so I got really curious about that too. Like, why are psychologists ignoring this? I did a study on psychologists and money. But that's really what got me into that. And part of that journey for me was going back home and interviewing my parents. Okay, Mom, what was it like for you growing up around money? What was it like for Grandma and Grandpa? I did the same thing with my father. And I found all these family stories that explained to me why my family had been broke for generations. Because that was one of the questions I had. Some branches of my family have been in the U.S. since the Mayflower. And my grandparents are living in a trailer park. We lived in a 1-bathroom home, which was a major upgrade. But I was really curious, like, so there have been people who've been in America way less, like one generation, and they got their names on buildings. Like, what's going on here? They came here broke. And in one generation, they were able to do that. Yet my family's been here for many, many generations. And we haven't been able to do any of that. And so I got really curious about that on a personal level. And then I got curious on an academic level. How do we understand this? And how can I help myself? And how can I share this with as many people as possible, which is my passion right now.
Yeah, I mean, what lessons did you learn from your grandparents and your parents that it sort of taught you about and helped you formulate what later became, I think, your 4 money scripts? You know, what pain points did they have or that translated to you? What generational money or personal traumas that we all share? Life is not easy. We all bump into things, whether it be medical catastrophe, financial catastrophe, relationship catastrophe. What were the catastrophes in your life that really illuminated you as like, this is why I think this way about money?
Yeah, there's so many. And I'll just mention the one that I heard that day when I sat down with my mother, back then when we used tape recorders, and I was recording her answers to the questions I was asking her. And I've learned a lot more since then, but this story blew me away. So I asked her what it was like for her growing up. She talked about growing up in inner city Detroit, and she went to a school where half the kids were rich, and she came from the poor side of town, and she always felt inferior. That started to make sense to me in understanding my mom's psychology and the shame, frankly, I felt about not having much money. I had all this shame around it, and she did. She had all this shame. And then I also knew, though, that my mother was always told me, like, oh, never invest money. Like, you can't trust investments. So she had this really deep fear about that. And they didn't invest any money. But what I didn't know was that my grandfather, so my mother's father, when he was a young man, and just imagine this happened to you. Just think about this. He goes to the bank and the doors are locked and all his money's gone. The bank's collapsed. He lost every single dollar he had as a young man. Instantly became broke. Instantly. The Great Depression, the bank collapse. And so he lived through that. And that was a traumatic experience for him. And he never talked to me about it, but I know it was a traumatic experience because he never put a dollar in the bank the rest of his life. So he lived into his 90s and he would keep his cash in a box under the bed or up in the attic. And he had his place broken into about half a dozen times because people figured that out. That's what he was doing. And he had such a deep mistrust. So imagine how much money you will lose out in interest if you go unbanked for 70 years of your life. And that's what he did. And then all of a sudden, that fear my mom had around institutions made total sense to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, of course. And then my psychology made sense because in psychology, we see this all the time where people either emulate the behavior of their parents or they do the opposite. And we see this all the time. For example, I'll use drinking alcohol or alcoholism as an example. Alcoholism is an extreme relationship with alcohol. People are over-consuming it, much to their detriment. What you see is often in children of alcoholics is they may become alcoholic or abuse alcohol themselves, or, and we see this quite often, people have sort of an extreme reaction in the other way, which makes total sense. It's like, I'm never touching this stuff. I'm never going to take a drink. And by the way, it turns out that that's pretty good for your health, but it's also a pretty emotionally intense relationship that people have with it. And that's what I saw happen to me. I call it a dysfunctional pendulum swing. So my grandparents, my mom, my dad, not a dollar invested. They're never going to do it. It's too scary. And I thought, oh, well, I don't want to be broke like my family has been for generations. So I'm going to become an investor. But did I approach it the way that I should be approaching investing? No, I had no idea. I put all of my money in one asset class in just a couple positions at the riskiest time in history up to that point, and ended up losing my money. So dysfunctional pendulum swing. And the good news, though, is if I didn't dig into my own psychology, I would have just landed right back on my grandfather's script. And you can't trust investments. And I could have lived my entire life like that, teaching my kids not to trust investments. But thankfully, I was trying to dig into my own psychology to try to sort it out.
So it's interesting because you've had this generational legacy of living broke. You invest all your money in one thing, you lose all your money, you're back to broke, you're back to zero. Why did you not fall into the same trap your grandfather did? What did you do different? How did you dig out of that hole?
I think at that point, and this is partially my upbringing from my father too, thankfully I had an internal locus of control. And that in psychology, it turns out that it's a massive success mindset. It's something that I've used in my studies when I look at the psychology of ultra wealthy versus middle class versus low income. This thing is held true that people with an internal locus of control have much better outcomes in life. They are wealthier, they do better in school, they do better with their careers, they have better relationships. And essentially what an internal locus of control is that you attribute the outcomes you're getting in life to you. And it's real easy to do when it's success, but when it's failure, people struggle with this. Essentially, what it comes down to is, another way to say it is, if you blame yourself for what's happening in your life, you're much more likely to have different outcomes. Because if you blame the rest of the world, which is an external locus of control, so if I blame the government or the banks or the greedy corporations, all these people who may very well be worthy of some blame, I'm powerless at that point. And if only they did things differently, then my life would be different. And so thankfully, I had a habit of blaming myself. I remember I got into a car accident once, and it was in South Dakota. I was living there, and I happened to be living with my father at the time. And I was in a Jeep, and there was ice on the highway. I was going under the speed limit, by the way, Bill. All right. And I lost control of my Jeep, and it almost flipped over into a ravine. Almost was devastating, but I wrecked it. And it was devastating. I was scared. I was sort of traumatized a little bit. I almost died. And I remember I called my dad, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Dad, this happened. And he almost immediately, he says, well, I wonder what you could do differently next time. And I remember just being like, oh, you asshole. Can I swear right here? Sorry. But I was so mad.
Absolutely.
I was so mad. I'm like, don't you understand? There was ice on the road. And not only that, I saw this wreckage. By the way, the state of South Dakota sent me a bill for the guardrail. That's the downside to not having a state income tax, I guess. And I was so mad because there was all this other wreckage there. I'm like, I wasn't the only person who ran into this thing. And I told them there's at least 2 other accidents there. So then they only charged me for a third of it, believe it or not. But yeah, it's like, that's what I was raised with. I was sort of raised with this like, yeah, well, I failed. Oh, well, I should probably practice harder. I got a C on a test. Oh, well, you should have studied harder. Yeah, but the teacher, this or that. Yeah, I don't want to hear it. That was you. So thankfully, I was raised with that type of tough love, which you might see some of that on my social media as I'm trying to empower people. But it's kind of like a slap in the face. So you're like, ugh, but it's so empowering. And so thankfully, I think I had that early on.
Hey, Jackie, guess what? We got a new sponsor for the show.
Yeah, I am very excited about our sponsor, thealloymarket.com. It came to us through our partnership with the Financial Influencers Network. And what they do is help amplify the stuff that we're talking about and getting us with great partners like the Alloy Market.
Yeah, the Alloy Market has a great story. The founder had a medical emergency, needed to take a break from his job, but needed to keep himself afloat. He had some inherited gold and silver or platinum. He sold it, but he wasn't sure how to do it. He didn't know where to go, and he's not sure he got good prices. The Alloy Market buys your gold, silver, and platinum for excellent prices and helps you declutter.
Yeah, that is so cool. So, Bill, I am going to put this new sponsor through the test. So I forgot I had this little gold bar. About 10 years ago, a friend gave this to me, and it's 2.5 grams. So I am going to go online and get the kit that they offer and see how much I can get. Supposedly, they give you a lot more, at least 70% of what the spot price is. So I'm looking forward to that. But a long time ago, Bill, this didn't exist. And my old wedding ring, I had that thing around forever. I'm all about decluttering. So when I finally got rid of it, the only option I had was to go to like a pawn shop or something, sometimes a sketchy part of town. I don't even know if I got a good deal. So I am looking forward to Alloy and checking out their process. And you should probably check it out too.
Yeah, Jackie, we're very happy to have the Alloy Market as a partner. I look forward to finding out how your test goes.
Yeah, just go to thealloymarket.com. That's TheAlloymarket.com. So you can do the same thing, and I will give you an update on what I got for my 2.5 grams of gold.
Yeah, that's thealloymarket.com. That's TheAlloymarket.com. Look for it in the show notes. What happened next? So you regrouped and you became you gave up on learned helplessness. You had this internal locus of control instead of this external exoskeleton that a lot of us need to prop ourselves up. And then what was the trajectory of your journey from there? Because you're the GOAT or the OG of financial psychology. How did you get from there to here?
Well, I think when I experienced that financial loss, I did blame myself. And one of the things I blame myself is I clearly don't know what rich people do. I clearly don't know what wealthy people do when it comes to investing. I thought my buddy here knew. At that point, he was 20 years my senior and seemed to have a nice house compared to mine. But he really had no idea what they did either. He wouldn't have been investing on margin, the poor guy. I mean, he got decimated. But then I started a search. I was like, okay, so there's this entire body of knowledge I know nothing about. And so I read books like The Richest Man in Babylon, which blew me away. I read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. I read The Millionaire Next Door, incredible book. And I just became super hungry. Okay, so how do people do this? How should I be looking at this? Where did I go wrong? So it started by identifying the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. So that's on the practical side. And then I also realized that, oh, wait, clinical psychologists don't care about money? Oh, okay. So I think a month later, I was the world leading expert in clinical psychology around money. So it was like, that was that trajectory. It happened really fast since most of my colleagues never talked about it. I remember actually in grad school, we were in class and a professor said, we're here to help people, not make money. And I remember being in the back of the class. And I also realized this too. I was at that point too, most of my classmates were kids of very wealthy families. And I realized that partway through that I was really out of my element given my background. And all these kids are nodding their heads. And I'm in the backyard going, I'm taking out $100,000 in loans and I'm going to have to go pay this back. What are you talking about? We're not here to make money. I mean, is it possible to help people and make money? I just remember just being really like confused by that. And upset too, frankly. Like, why am I here going into debt if this isn't like a business decision? So that was sort of like a transformational thing for me too, to feel like really high self-esteem around my expertise in psychology. And turns out that therapists, by the way, and if you're a therapist, just take this to heart. I did a study, and so psychologists, therapists have a tendency to be more money avoidant. So they have a tendency to have a negative association with money. It's like, I'm here to help people. Oh, I don't want to be selfish. If you have too much money, it's bad. Rich people are greedy. Money can even corrupt you. There's even virtue in having less money. So that money avoidance mindset that, frankly, the profession struggles with.
Yeah, I mean, I was money avoidant for a large part of my life, and that's one of your 4 scripts. Is there an upside to avoidance, or is it all negative? Because it seems like the 4 scripts you have really have ultimately negative connotations. And are there upsides or positives to each of these scripts, or are we just doomed to be negative in our relationship with money?
We did do a study on beliefs around money. And that was one of the things that nobody had really done, which is sort of shocking as a psychologist. Actually, there's one study that said that there was no association between beliefs and money. And flawed research when I looked into it, but I was like, you got to be kidding me. Beliefs predict everything in life. If you believe that your spouse is a selfish narcissist, they're going to start acting that way because you're going to start being a jerk to them. And they're going to start saying, hey, what about me? And so that you're going to see it everywhere you look. That's the thing you got to be really careful about with your beliefs, is that whatever you believe, you're going to start seeing it everywhere. And then confirmation bias comes in, and then you're going to weed out any information that might suggest that the way you believe things is wrong. And you're going to surround yourself with friends who, like in our example here, they hate rich people too. And they think money's bad too. So that's what's so challenging about it. But that sort of open-mindedness to challenging it is really, really important. So we found 4 belief categories. And actually, one of them is really good for your financial health. So, but the money avoidance, it's not good for you. Lower income, lower net worth, more self-destructive financial behaviors. You have a negative association with money. I guess the only benefit is that if you're broke or poor, it'll help you feel better about it, because it takes a lot longer to actually get money and become wealthy. But the easy fix is just to be like, just disparage everyone who has it. And you see this all the time on social media, all the time, where you'll see a rich person do something that seems great. Like, oh, I'm going to give away 98% of my money to charity. And then what you'll hear, the confirmation bias is like, yeah, but that's just to get your children board seats or something, or you're just doing it to reduce taxes. So whatever you're looking for, be careful, because you're going to find it. That's the cautionary tale. So the second category we found is what I called money worship or money focus. And this is where you're putting money up on a pedestal, like it's going to solve all your problems, it's going to make you happy. And there's truth to some of that. By the way, there's truth to all of these. Like, there are some really rich, nasty people out there. They all have elements of truth. But the problem with this belief is it leads to massive consumerism, because it's like, more money, more stuff's going to make me happier. And you can never fill that happiness hole with purchases. And we've all had this experience. You get a present on your birthday and it's the most exciting thing ever. And you probably can't even remember what 99% of those presents are right now, because it's fleeting. And if that's your mindset, you're just going to rack up a bunch of debt. The third category we called money status. And this is the keeping up with the Joneses, essentially. So it is where you are equating your net worth with your self-worth. You're not going to buy something unless it's new. You wouldn't be caught dead going to like Goodwill for clothes. Of course not. People would judge you. If people asked you how much money you'd make, you're going to inflate it. You're going to tell them you make more than you actually do. I sort of equate this to Instagram culture. It's the flex culture. And interestingly, people who grew up in lower socioeconomic homes are more likely to be vulnerable to this script. I was when I was first getting out of school. And then the fourth category is what we call money vigilance. And this is the one that's associated with higher net worth, higher income, better financial health, lower credit card debt. And this is something that, Bill, you said you've been embracing to a degree. And I think most Americans actually need to embrace more of this. And that is where you think it's important to save for a rainy day, where you think that it's okay to buy used things. You have a focus on the future. You are somewhat anxious about the future too. And one of the items on that scale is I'd be a nervous wreck if I didn't have money saved for the future. Interestingly too, if people ask how much money I made, I'd actually tell them I make less than I do. And so that's the irony. Well illustrated in The Millionaire Next Door. And I've done research that's really confirmed many of those findings from that study too, where people have a tendency to downplay stuff when they're on the road to wealth or they are wealthy. There is a downside to that, which you mentioned too, where you can become so anxious that you're the Ebenezer Scrooge type who can't enjoy their life. So you want to avoid becoming a miserable Scrooge that nobody wants to be around. That's a terrible way to live. But it seems like you do need to have some of that future orientation, some of that concern. It's almost like a squirrel who doesn't worry about the winter is going to starve. So you have to have some of that to delay gratification now for freedom in the future.
Yeah, it seems like if you invert this, like Charlie Munger would say sometimes, money avoidance could be kind of money embracing. Maybe that's the script we're looking for. Embrace money as your friend and your enemy. And money worship, maybe that could be money respect, where you have a healthy respect for what it is as opposed to putting it on a pedestal. Money status, it's sort of money realism, maybe. Let's just look at this from the average Joe's eyes. And money vigilance, that's an interesting one. And that's where we need to probably talk a little bit about Ebenezer Scrooge, because his journey is also a hero's journey, and he meets many characters along the way. And in some ways, it reflects also your journey through these scripts in a way, where you graduate or you mature through each script, because maybe we all start with money avoidance or money scarcity, and we get to abundance. What do you think about that thought, and how does Ebenezer Scrooge play a role in all of this?
Oh, I love how you created those alternative, better scripts. And really, I think that is the journey around these scripts, is a re-scripting process, because there's always an element of truth to all of these, and that's what makes it difficult to shift them. So like my grandfather, for example, you can't trust banks with your money. That's a very logical script given what he experienced. And by the way, don't we all wish he had that script like a week before the banks collapsed? That would have been very functional, because you literally couldn't. But these beliefs start to become dysfunctional when we rigidly hold on to them, because life changes, things change. We need to learn to adapt. I would say the ability to adapt is really important to our survival and thriving. So you don't want to hold on too rigidly to a belief in a changing world. And Ebenezer Scrooge, we picked that metaphor to help illustrate the treatment process we were using with people who were struggling with money issues. We had a program called Healing Money Issues that we ran for many years. And Scrooge is a great metaphor, because it is a guy who's living out of balance around money, and there's an intervention that happens. It's like usually we need a wake-up call. And mine was like losing my money in the tech bubble burst. Like, oh my gosh. And so he had this ghost that said, if you keep doing this, his old business partner, this is the misery you're going to be experiencing. And it's like, whoa. And then the Ghost of Christmas Past had him look into his past. And what we saw then is we saw visions of him feeling like he didn't have enough money and scarcity. And so you got this idea, oh, so that's why he became a bit of a hoarder. Is like he was reacting to the idea of like, I don't want to be poor. Now, interestingly, he constructed a life that looked pretty poor. Like he's eating gruel. He's not heating his house. I mean, he's having the experience of poverty even though he has money. And from our perspective too, and this is what happened to me, looking into my history and my past, it just put things all in a new light. And one of the things it does is it helps de-shame you. So if you are catching up to financial independence because you weren't paying attention or you weren't taught, or this isn't something that was instilled in you Your parents didn't instill it in you to think like this. It's real easy to beat yourself up. It's real easy to say, oh my gosh, look at me. I'm 40. I have credit card debt. I'm ashamed. And if you're having that experience, if you're late to the game, to me, it's like, of course you are. Like, there's no shame. My guess is that if we looked into your family history, where you are at right now is utterly predictable. And if we gave 100 kids to your parents and grandparents in your family system, they'd probably end up where you are. It's very predictable in terms of how these things get passed down. So I think some of that helps you de-shame. It's like, oh, no wonder. Blame your parents if you want, as part of that stage around why you are the way you are. And once you do that, and I think that's what unlocked it for me, the Ghost of Christmas Present came in. It's like, look it, this is the reality. And you become hungry. And I became hungry to read and to learn and to change my view and to find mentors who are a step or two ahead of me and try to pick their brain. What are they doing differently? What should I do? What's the next best step? And with doing all, that's when it opens up for you to create and envision the future you actually want. And interestingly, I did a study where we had people do a bunch of stuff within 1 hour. But one of the things we had them do is create a vision board of their ideal financial future. So for this particular study, we had them pick 3 financial goals, their top 3 goals. And we had them cut out pictures and I had them close their eyes. I did this whole thing to have them visualize their goals. And what we saw is a 73% increase in savings after doing that for 1 hour because they had a clear, exciting vision of what they wanted. We had a comparison group that had a much smaller effect, just encouraging people to save more, around 20% increase. Just a massive, mind-blowing increase because we are wired to consume right now. And because that's what feels good. That's what your brain wants to do. And to override that, you have to have something that's even more exciting. And for people who are on the path to financial independence, my guess is the degree to which they are sacrificing now for that is because they have a pretty exciting vision in mind. And if you don't have that vision, you're probably not going to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah, this comes back to sort of the behavioral science of labeling your accounts. My account is my vacation account or my house down payment account. It's not just 5649 or whatever. That's not my account number, by the way. At any rate, let's take, for example, Ebenezer Scrooge is a late starter. That's our audience. And we didn't get it right. What would our friends, our ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future, say to us to help us jumpstart this hero's journey we want to go on, that we all want? This really is probably the true American dream, is, like you say, time freedom. It's not the house with the white picket fence, 2 cars in the garage that are all things. It's a place. And the place is time freedom. Take the late starter on the Scrooge journey for me.
I was a bit of a late starter. I mean, not super late, but I was in my 30s before I invested a dime. Like I had a negative net worth of 100,000 when I was 30. And I know some people are even later along the path, but there was a moment in which you realized you were late. And that's sort of the slap in the head that perhaps you needed to sort of shake you and wake you up that, hey, the way you're going isn't going to get you where you want to be. And so this is a blessing too. It's a miserable experience, especially if you feel like you don't have enough time. But it's super important and something that we want everyone to have that experience along the path. And then I think, again, sometimes for some people, that's enough. Like they're like, oh, I wasn't doing it. I'm going to start doing it. And then others of us, we're not ready emotionally to do that because we're feeling shame. We're feeling embarrassment. We're feeling a sense of loss or guilt. And that's where I think it really does help to put things in perspective and to kind of give yourself a break by understanding your psychology and why you got there. For me anyway, and for many people, that helps release some of those emotions that keep you trapped. And the way I look at shame is it's like an emotional glue trap. And it really does keep you stuck because it makes you say, why bother trying? There's something wrong with me. And I think it's so much healthier to look at it like I said, where of course you are where you are. And when it comes to money scripts too, I've never seen a financial situation as crazy or as bad as it looked that didn't make total sense when you actually looked at, okay, so what are the beliefs that I had around money when that happened? And where did I get those? Where did they come from? And that could be an event that happened in your life. And for some of us, it happened to our grandparents, and maybe you don't even know about it. And so part of that journey too is if you could interview family members whether it's a parent or a grandparent or even siblings or aunts or uncles or cousins. And you can actually put together the story of your family history. And I think that can be very motivating too, because you probably inherited some of this. And part of the hero's journey too that I picked up is like, okay, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to change the course of my entire family history, not just my life. And I'm going to raise my kids in a different way around money. And I'm going to make my grandpa proud, because all the sacrifice, even the things that he did that weren't right, have set me up, gave me a leg up compared to where he came from. And I'm going to continue that path. I find that to be something that's actually motivating for me. And so to try to find something that gives yourself a break, releases some of that shame, and then can motivate you to take action.
Yeah, what's interesting is we talk about shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. And like there's market cycles, there seems to be generational wealth cycles. And you talk about pendulum swinging. One trauma carries down through the generations and keeps people in a poor mindset. And then it cycles up. And then, for example, say, oh, your kids grow up without a worry in the world and they don't know what hunger is. They don't know what one bathroom is. Then all of a sudden, you could have this sort of level of entitlement where money is to be spent. It's easy. I don't have to work hard. And to me, there seems like there's a life cycle of this. How do we create perpetual wealth, generational wealth, where we don't succumb to the dysfunctional money scripts of too much sometimes?
Yeah, on a personal level, that is a work in progress for me, because I do realize my kids are having a totally different experience around money than I did. I mean, like, not even close to the experience I had. And so the natural tendency is for people like me, is who grew up not having enough, is to give your kids everything you wish you would have had, out of a sense of love. Of course, you don't want them to suffer. And not only that, you realize that you suffered unfairly or undeservedly. And so the balance for me has been, first of all, I want to pass down the hustle. Okay, I really do. Because I know it's going to be really good for them to have a sense of purpose and a sense of passion and a sense of, I want to create something. So I definitely want them to have that. And in the research I've done, we've identified a couple syndromes, and one of them is financial dependence. And that's the thing that we don't want our children to have, because there's a downside to it. So if you get money for doing nothing, it reinforces you doing nothing. I mean, this is human nature. It's like, why would I do anything if I don't have to? Why would I suffer? Why would I work hard? So we want to make sure that we're not reinforcing behaviors that we don't want to see more of. And so as a psychologist, that's the way I think about it, is a behavioral reinforcement. So the reason that I go to work some days is because I get money and I need the money to pay my whatever. So that's why I go. So I get reinforced. And the downside for that dependence is psychologically, it creates a sense, a lack of passion, a lack of motivation, a lack of purpose. They end up resenting their parents or the government. What's so interesting is the syndrome happens in multi-generational welfare families, as well as multi-generational wealth, trust fund situations. So we definitely don't want to do that. I personally also don't want to pass down the scarcity trauma to my kids either. And so it's a bit of a balance. And so it's something that I'm always thinking about. What is this teaching them? Whether I'm giving them something, whether I'm giving them an experience, and how can I create the situation that motivates them to take action, and so that they can get the positive rewards that come from hard work and overcoming difficulties and challenges and experiencing failure and experiencing success. I mean, I want them to have that experience. And so it's something that I'm consciously thinking about all the time.
Yeah, it seems like when we wake up, rather than blame our past, we need to research the past like you did, create the family money tree so that we understand why we got to where we are. And at the same time, look at the numbers and look where we stand with regards to our net worth, our balance sheet, our expenses, et cetera. The numbers become important, but it's more important to know, as you say, understand, how did I get here? It's okay. It's understandable. It's a reproducible path, but how do I change course? And that's where you embrace the hustle of the present and dive down the rabbit hole of curiosity and knowledge that feeds your desire to look towards the future and take care of your future self. To me, that's the cycle of the hero's journey from a sort of money standpoint, but really a wealth standpoint. that we are all on, whether we know it or not. And we get stuck because we allow ourselves to get stuck, and we don't research the past, get curious about the present, and look forward to the future. Does that sound about right?
I think that's it.
Mic drop moment. Okay.
I can't correct you on that. I think you nailed it.
Podcast is over, people. We got nothing left to talk about. You heard it here first. Okay, let's have some fun. Okay, in your book, The 21 Harsh Truths, you're good at holding up a mirror to people's faces and saying, no, if you're breathing into this mirror and you're creating a little steam, you're still alive, there's still a possibility for change, but look at where you are. 3 of the chapters in your book may apply to our late starter audience a little bit. And we've talked about one of them, but there's a chapter you title, and your titles are very in your face. Your beliefs about money are keeping you poor. Do you have any further words to say on that, especially to our late starter audience?
Yes. So first of all, I think that is about the best news you've heard in a long time. I think it's just incredible news. Like, if you told me that, hey, Brad, your lack of satisfaction in your marriage is because of you. It's like, okay, so first of all, it's really her, Bill. Okay. All right. So once you get over that.
The best personal and financial decision I ever made is my wife, and we just celebrated 27 years.
Beautiful.
Go team.
I love it. So my wife and I, it's 22. And it's like, it's such incredible. Like, once you can get over the ego slap. And by the way, studies have found too that ultra wealthy people are way more able to admit fault. Isn't that interesting? To blame themselves. It's just easier for them to do that. And I think it's associated with success. It is. How disempowering and powerless would it be if you're poor because of all these things that are utterly out of your control? What a terrible psychological position to be in. So even if it's like 5% true, I happen to believe it's 95% true that your beliefs are keeping you poor. And because we've done studies on beliefs, and if you have this certain set of beliefs, you're richer. And if you have these other sets of beliefs and we went over them, you're poorer. So to me, it's great news. And once I realized, wait, I'm doing this. It's the way I'm looking at the world. It just, it's so freeing. It unleashes energy. It unleashes your personal power. I feel like the biggest insult somebody could ever tell you is that you are in your financial situation because you're weak and powerless and pathetic. I don't know how that helps you. Like, to me, that's terrible.
I've been on this journey, and I'm still on this journey. What's interesting to me is that you're not static with this. This journey flexes. For example, I'm the host of a podcast. I'm supposed to get it right. I'm supposed to know what I'm talking about. I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. Well, the last time I tried to tax loss harvest, oops, I bought the same fund and I got a wash sale. Oh my goodness. I knew it theoretically, but I hadn't lived it. So I'm still making mistakes. I'm still growing. I'm still learning. And the key to, I think, moving through these stages of the money scripts is forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and forgiving others. And then the other one would be gratitude. Be grateful for what you have and build upon that. I mean, these are some of the money gratitude. That could be a script. Let's rewrite the script. Let's create the 4 scripts we are seeking out, not the ones we are at now. What would those scripts be if you could pick the scripts you'd like to see as opposed to the ones we're living with and struggling with now?
I love it, Bill. And if you noticed, I don't think we've talked about one of my successes in this entire podcast. All we've talked about is my failures repeatedly. And I'm going to tell you, Bill, I do that on purpose. Like, I'm doing that on purpose. And part of the reason I'm doing that is to de-shame you people, because I think it's so important. I've made a ton of mistakes and I'm probably going to make some more. Like, I'm not planning on it, but I guarantee you I'm going to. And what's so fascinating too, there was this one study that was done, and it ask the people how many major financial catastrophes they've had in their life, like big failures. And the average millionaire had approximately 3, and the average non-millionaire had slightly less than 1. And what does that tell you? It could tell you a lot of things. We just have to make up what it means. But one of the things that I hypothesize, because I've done other studies where wealthier people have lower loss aversion, so they're less likely to hold on to losing things, whereas people who have less money are more likely to hold on to it. Okay, so I made some mistakes, but I'm not going to admit these mistakes. I'm just going to hold on to this relationship, this business, this investment. I'm going to ride it all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Wealthier people are less likely to do that. They're more likely to say, oops, I did it again. And so wealthy people major catastrophes. They learn from it. Where did I go wrong? What can I do differently next time? That, to me, that is how you grow. That is how you become successful. You don't become successful by avoiding situations in which you might make a blunder.
Yeah, I mean, the fancy term for that, I would think, is sunk cost fallacy for folks out there. But we put it out there in real terms. If you've lost, shed your losses and move on and grow the good bits. And that's what the wealthy do. And instead of holding tight-fisted onto all the dysfunction in our lives, let go. I mean, this is like letting the people around you that are poor, in the poor mindset, let them go and surround yourself with wealthy mindset people, right? And then you will too become wealthy because you are the sum of the 3 to 5 people you surround yourself with. And that's one of the cycles, I think, of poverty, poor, and broke, is that we don't seek out the mentors like you or this podcast, for example, that surround us with people that want to lift us up.
That's right. Yeah, that was one of the chapters of my book. If you want to get rich, you got to get rid of your poor friends. And before you get mad at me, remember, we're talking poor mindset. These could be people making $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, and blowing it all every weekend. And if you're hanging around with those people, we are psychologically wired that it's almost going to be impossible for you not to do the same. You're going to start feeling bad about yourself if that's your group, if that's your tribe, and you're going to start acting like them. I get this all the time too. I don't know any millionaires. Well, even if you don't know any millionaires, people in your life right now that are a step or two ahead of you. You probably know some people who are future millionaires. You just may not know it because they're pretty quiet about it. But while other people are flexing things, are dumping money on toys, they're living more modestly. And that should make you curious. I wonder where their money's going. And what you will quite often find is that they are saving and investing quietly, and you run the numbers, they're going to be multimillionaires. And so I think it's a really good idea to surround yourself with people who have a rich mindset, even if they're not wealthy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, mindset is a slider, and we think of it in numbers, but you're thinking of a slider, a spectrum in mindset, which is in many ways much more important than the numbers. You can have a wealthy mindset but be broke, and that is a much more optimistic situation. Chapter whatever it was, it's not your fault if you were born poor, but it is your fault if you die poor. That's in your face. What do you say to that one?
Yeah, that's pretty in your face. Well, if anyone is too upset, I'd like to blame chapter titles on my co-author Adrian when he's not here. But actually, that's something his father told him. It's something I also believe. And if you're upset by that, just understand this. It's like Dr. Brad isn't like sneaking into your room when you're 94 on your deathbed whispering this to you. It's your fault. This is you. You're not there yet. This is inspiring. And you can't help being born poor. I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, you just have to accept the fact that life is utterly unfair. And by an accident of birth, you may have been born somewhere where people didn't have any money. And even worse, they had a poor mindset. And it took you many, many years to uncover that. And also what's interesting too is, like, if you grew up in a lower income environment, and I'm not saying this is true for you, Bill, but sometimes you're like, you have this idea of what success is, right? So it's like, I'm going to get my doctorate degree and then I'm successful. Well, you've increased your ability to earn income perhaps, but there's a whole nother part of the formula around what you do with your checks as they're coming in and what's ideal. But for me growing up too, I was like, well, once I hit that level of status, like I became a doctor, then I'm set for life. That's really common. And there's no shame in not realizing there's another step to the process because you've just advanced your family tree so much by getting there. But that's just another example of things that you may not know the entire story, which could trip you up.
My co-host Jackie, she broke out of poverty because she had a wealthy mindset. She did it. Listen to episode 7. You'll hear her story. It's truly inspirational. I'm the guy you just talked about. I'm episode 1. I'm the guy that became the rich doctor, but went paycheck to paycheck and was broke more than my millionaire next door neighbor. We come from all backgrounds, but we all want to get on the same path, the yellow brick road to Oz, so to speak, which is time freedom. One of your chapters that really speaks to me for my audience, or our audience, I should say, is Retirement is for Dead People. And I really like that title. Why is retirement for dead people?
Oh, what a terrible thing to say. Well, because I feel like what happens for many people, and as a financial planner too, I've seen this play out, is that we have this idea that once we stop working, then things are just going to be great. And what quite often happens is people end up getting depressed And I've seen this happen so many times. I've seen people who have sold a business and now they have $100 million after taxes, a little bit less. But I remember working with a guy and things were great for about 3 months, maybe 6 months. And then after that, unfortunately, he had signed a non-compete. So he could not do any of the work that he loved doing. So he basically signed, I won't do anything that I love doing in terms of creating things. And he got utterly depressed, major depressive episode, got suicidal thoughts. I mean, his whole life melted and broke down because he all of a sudden had a lack of purpose. And so I think redefining retirement is so important because I don't think we're meant to not work. I don't think we're meant to just sit around. And when I say not work, work essentially means engaging in an activity designed for a purpose. Pretty sure that's the definition of work. And I would just suggest to you that you want to have a purpose and you want to have something that you're getting up every day and you're putting effort into. Now, what's great about being financially independent is you can get to decide that as you go, and maybe you change that as you go. You have much more flexibility. But just understanding the idea that stopping doing anything purposeful and meaningful is going to help you out, it actually could lead to a lot of destruction. So just keep that in mind. And actually, we talk about in Japan, there's an entire syndrome that women deal with over there. It's like retired husband syndrome. And it's like dealing with these men who are upset and depressed and irritable and agitated because they've cut out the thing that was giving them a sense of identity, a sense of purpose, a sense of social connection. The degree to which you're really wrapped up in your job too is also associated with the trauma that could come in you losing it. So just keeping in mind that I think we're meant to pursue passion, pursue purpose. And so the idea of never working again is rarely a great goal.
Yeah, I agree that retirement is a word that probably should be banished from the financial literacy language because it means laying down in bed and going to sleep, basically.
Right.
We are driven to work, whether it's for money or not. And if you follow the principles of Ikigai, we did an episode on Ikigai, getting paid for things where you're giving value and getting value is a good thing. And it's only natural. It's a synergistic thing. And whether you get paid or not is beside the point. Work is healthy for us. We live longer with work. We live longer if we have a partner. We live longer if we have a dog, right?
That's right. Yep. It's connection and purpose.
All right. I want to end the episode here in the next few minutes with a few of your Facebook posts.
Oh,
These
my.
are good ones. If you haven't yet, join Brad Klontz on his personal Facebook page where hour by hour or day by day, you're getting these in-the-face statements that generate some interesting conversation. And I've been sucked into it, and maybe you will too. I'm going to throw a few at you in the lightning round, and you tell me what you think about it.
What do you mean, do I regret writing it or?
Whatever comes to mind. It's kind of that psychological free-form thinking thing.
Got it. We got it.
If your car note is bigger than your 401k contribution, you're not driving, you're drowning.
That's right. And I'm going to tell you right now that we need to make financial independence cool. Okay. I have an avatar on who I'm talking to, and I want the kid. And I used to work with high school kids, and my vision is a kid in a McDonald's uniform on a bus going to work. And so imagine that his coworker pulls up next to him and they're at a stoplight, and that kid is driving a brand new F-150 Ford pickup truck. Because that's what he did with his paycheck. And by the way, they'll sell you one as soon as when you're 17 and you have a job. And I want that kid on the bus to look over and just shake his head and go, ugh, what an idiot. We need to make financial independence and striving for it cool.
I like that. Make financial independence cool. That's a t-shirt that I might, we have to put that out together. I think we just started a business there. If you're really, let's do a few more.
Sure.
If you can't afford to invest, you can't afford Netflix either.
That's right. I don't want to hear it. And I don't want to hear I can't afford to invest, because don't say that to me, because I will find a way for you to be able to afford to invest. And I got to tell you, I get so inspired by immigrants, frankly. Like the richest people I know personally are immigrants. People who are willing to do what you would never do to become wealthy. They are willing to sacrifice in a way that you would just find appalling. Oh my goodness, I could never do that. So anyway, it's like you're welcome to live the life you want to live, but if you tell me you can't afford to invest, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, fiscal fitness is like physical fitness. You can only build a muscle one rep at a time. And if you're saving $5 a day, $10 a day, $100 a month, It's all working towards the same goal of getting 1% better. And that's what we're about here at Catching Up to Five. Okay, we got a few more because this is fun. All right, debt is the most addictive drug in America. If you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't have a life, you have a sentence.
That's right. I feel like we have to wake up. They literally call us consumers. You sheep. Are you kidding me? We just think we just need everything. And just look around your house. I've been in other places in the world and they don't have the crap around their house that you got. And you think you need these things. We got to snap out of it, people. Like, we are consumers. We consume. We have so much crap we don't need. I'm even looking around my desk right now. 2/3 of this could go. I need the good lighting as I get older, too. I need the ring light. But we're addicted. We're addicted to this. And so the only cure, the way I see it, because I succumb to it too, and it comes to your subconscious, and you're like, oh, but I need to have this. This is the tribal brain. We're all wired to do this, is to pay yourself first. To me, that's the only cure. Because if you wait to the end of the month to see how much is left over for you to save and invest, it will be zero. It will be zero. The only solution I know is, okay, and the earlier you do it, the better. When you get your first job, it's the easiest thing ever. Just invest 30% of your income, live on the rest. It's a lot harder to do. As you said, once you're living your life, it's very painful to come up with that 30%. But we are addicts.
Okay, I completely agree. I was a spender, then a saver. I only saved at tax time. And flipping the script really is that. If there's one thing I can say to this audience or America, the world writ large, is pay yourself first. Save first, spend last. It's that easy. The investing part will come and you will learn it. That is a message we need to leave folks with. One more that I want to bring to our audience is your friends who make fun of you for saving will be broke at 50. I was there.
They will. Yes. This really does come down to, not to stereotype, but I'll just speak from a young man's point of view. I'm an older man now, but as a young man, I just felt terrible about myself when it came to how rich I was, how much money I had. Because really money, it does get tied to status. It really does. And status does get tied to your ability to date or to look like you're an attractive future mate. It's just so important for us to keep that in mind, that is a struggle for so many people, especially if they grow up lower income and they grow up poor. And it's real easy to cast dispersions on them and judge people. Understand this. That's huge. And so the thing I love about the FIRE community, I went to a party once as part of my book release over here, and it was so great. And I had a friend who was driving me there and had a nicer car. And it's like, you don't park one of those out in front of a FIRE movement. Yeah, it's sort of like drop us off a few blocks away. That's not cool. And then you go into the party and do you know what people flex? So first of all, nobody had a nice watch on. They wouldn't be caught dead in a nice watch, by the way, because that's not the culture. That's not the status. The status is, what percentage are you saving and investing each month? People would look, if you had a really nice car, jacket, or design, you would never wear designer shoes to a FIRE movement.
Yeah, I completely agree. But there is a caveat here. The people that are broke are buying Teslas at 20. The people that are FI are buying Teslas at 50 or 60 because they have the assets to support that. It's a completely different script. And one is a status issue. One is a this is good for the world issue, and I have the assets to pay for my liability. It's not that they're not buying the same thing. The young people are bringing their future expenditures forward using debt when the FIRE people are using assets. And it's not an overstatement of wealth. It's really just, this is my values and I can afford my values.
That's right. And also, too, if they had to go back to a Toyota, they would not care. They're doing it for other reasons, like you said. They're not addicted to the stuff and the flashing. And so a lot of what I do is I kind of come down a little bit hard on the luxury cars and the watches and the designer handbags, because I just want to make that uncool. I want to make saving and investing cool, because actually that is what will lead to better wealth if that's what you want to have. But yeah, that's part of what I'm messing around with on social media.
I love it because you speak to our audience because it is cool to save. It's a game. Rather than playing video games, play the game of buying VTSAX or whatever ETF you want to buy. That's a fun game because that grows for you. I mean, I've talked recently to colleagues who come to me because I am known as the money guy that does Catching Up to Five, and they hear me talking about money with a 20-year-old, just like your avatar is, the guy on the bus that you want to wake up. before he gets too lost with Robinhood and day trading and game stopping. And we were having this conversation, and afterwards, privately, the person came to me and told me how horribly in debt they were and didn't know what to do. And just telling me, I think, helped them process their shame, because they came out of the closet of debt and they were out into the light. And there you can own your life and start correcting your course and solving the problem. That's what you're about. That's what I'm about. I love your in the face style. I love the Facebook thing. I'll spar with you all day long on that. And I just want to thank you today, Brad, for coming out with us on Catching Up to Fi and getting real and getting cool.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
It's been awesome. I hope you'll come back, and I really look forward to meeting you someday in person.
That'd be great. Yeah, next time you're out in Colorado, let's
all right, guys. We'll
grab a latte. I'll buy you a $7 latte.
There you go.
Just don't tell anyone. Just don't tell anyone.
Yeah, we'll have a Starbucks together at the Fi event. All right, guys. This has been so much fun. Thank you to Brad Klontz for joining us. I miss Jackie, but she's out in Bali recording a few other episodes. We got a lot more coming for you on this show. Stay with us. We'll see you next week.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brazard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofi.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Fi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Fi. Cheers.